Let not your heart be troubled. You are listening to the Sean Hannity Radio Show podcast. If you're like me and suffer from insomnia, you know what? That's not fun. I tried everything. I couldn't get a good night's sleep. And this is neither drug nor alcohol induced. That's right. It is MyPillow. Mike Lindell invented it, and he fitted me for my first MyPillow, and it's changed my life. I fall asleep faster, stay asleep longer, and the good news, you can too. Just go to MyPillow.com, promo code Sean, and take advantage of one of Mike Lindell's best offers, his special 4-pack. You get 50% off 2 MyPillow premium pillows, 2 Go Anywhere pillows. Now, MyPillow's made in the USA, has a 60-day unconditional money-back guarantee, no risk to you, and a 10-year warranty. You don't want to spend more sleepless nights on a pillow tossing and turning that's not working for you. Just go to MyPillow.com right now, use the promo code Sean, and you get Mike Lindell's special 4-pack. You get 2 MyPillow premium pillows, 2 Go Anywhere pillows, 50% off, and you'll start getting the kind of peaceful and restful and comfortable and deep healing and recuperative sleep you've been craving and deserve. MyPillow.com, promo code Sean. All right, glad you're with us on this Friday. A lot of news breaking out now. By the way, Rick Gates has pled guilty in his case against the special counsel. I know people always want to read into what these guilty pleas are. I'm going to tell you half of it. Half of it is you got a choice. You go for the really easy, okay, not so bad, maybe facing a year in prison or 30 years in life. It's going to go on 6 or 7 years of your life. You're going to pay a fortune, even if you think you're innocent. It's not as cut and dry as everybody always thinks. But, yeah, I know the media thinks this is the biggest deal ever, and that's probably all you'll hear about. Most people don't even know who Rick Gates is, which is fairly amazing. We have some good news for the president today. We'll tell you about that. We have a lot of really big nuggets, is the way I would explain developments as it relates to Deep State Gate, Obama Gate, whatever term you prefer to use. We have a lot of new information as it relates to the Florida shooter and this case and signs that were missed that we're going to get to. The president announces today the toughest sanctions ever against North Korea. Gave a great speech at CPAC today. He seemed like he was just having, I don't think or remember where he's gone an hour and 15 minutes like he did today. Well, we're actually going to air part of it coming up later in the program. Let you hear it yourself in case you might have missed all of that. This will drive the media nuts. The media has tried everything they could possibly do to bring this president down, to really, the word is, well, discredit, I don't know, sabotage. They don't want him to be successful. His success is bad for people on the left. If Donald Trump is successful in getting people back to work, making America more secure, if making America energy independent, protecting our borders, if he's successful, think about this from the standpoint, if you're a liberal and you want power more than anything else, why would you want the president to succeed? The president succeeds, the country succeeds. That means an entire generation now of people will realize that his brand of conservatism works, and that's not good for those that prefer to be in power at all times. There's something intoxicating about power. And these guys want to be in power at all times, and they think they deserve power. They think they know better. Anyway, 13 months now into the Trump presidency, you got a brand new Gallup poll showing the American people are feeling great again. Now, you think of one of the biggest hallmarks of Ronald Reagan's presidency is America began to feel good about itself. And that is no small feat. If you think, when I said all during the election year, in 2016, 13 million more Americans on food stamps, 8 million more in poverty. Worst recovery since the 40s. Lowest labor participation rate since the 70s. Lowest home ownership rate, 51 years. Doubling our debt. On and on and on. You think about that. It's demoralizing at points. If everything Obama wanted to bring to the country and thought his radical indoctrination of Acorn Alinsky, Frank Marshall Davis, Reverend Wright, Black liberation theology, Ayers and Dorn. It never works. It never has worked. And it's almost the same principle. After 4 years of Jimmy Carter, America was sick and tired of, interest rates, double digit, inflation out of control. The debt, the morale of the country was just beginning to sink. And people in this election, the forgotten men and forgotten women, now we've got 2.7 million new jobs created. We've got the lowest unemployment level for African Americans, Hispanic Americans, since we've been keeping the data. I mean, we have virtually full employment in the country. 2 million fewer people on food stamps dependent on government. And that's a good thing. So as a result, you have 45% of Americans now are satisfied with the position of the United States in the world. That's a 13-year high, a 13 percentage point increase from just a year ago, just after President Trump took office. And the public is also more likely than they were a year ago to think that the U.S. rates favorably in the eyes of the rest of the world. And Americans are now more likely to be satisfied with the United States and their position in the world than at any point in the Obama presidency, according to Gallup. Now, for Democrats that are predicting dissatisfied Americans are going to retaliate against the GOP in the midterms, well, the results don't bode extraordinarily well. 29% think Trump is respected by other world leaders. A majority of Americans, 55%, believe the world rates the U.S. favorably. So, the high satisfaction rate, I think, we'll see. One thing that is going to be probably the biggest factor in this campaign. Do you want Nancy Pelosi as your speaker? Do you want Chuck Schumer running the Senate? And the one thing the Democrats have going against them is they stand for nothing. The only thing they stood for is what Obama gave us for 8 years. And they were complicit in that American decline for that period. And if you want to go back to that, I know there's an ebb and flow to political cycles, and we'll get the government that we deserve at that point. But I think it's too early to tell. One other poll out today, the Rasmussen presidential tracking poll, shows the 50% of likely U.S. voters approve of the president's job performance. That's the president's highest job approval rating since mid-June of last year. And Obama earned a 45% approval rating at this time in his presidency, in the second year of his presidency. So obviously some things have changed there. And, one thing I think might be happening, just an observation I have, is I think people now are kind of getting Donald Trump. They're getting the rhythm of Donald Trump. And as the media feigns more shock, indignation, and outrage every day, I mean, they just try and outdo their outrage. He's nuts. No. He's super nuts. No. He's demented nuts. No. He's the... No, I think what the American people see is somebody that rolls up his sleeves and goes out to fight for what he believes in. And he fights hard, and he doesn't like losing, and he doesn't want America to lose. And so far, the things that he's been able to accomplish, especially as it goes with government regulation, and he has freed up America to now become energy independent. He did keep his promise. He did put a conservative on the Supreme Court. You add that to all these businesses because of the less burdensome regulation and the better tax code. This is a better country. This is a better business environment. That's why people are getting hired. That's why companies are staying. That's why car companies, manufacturing is coming back. That's why big companies are pledging millions and billions to be spent inside this country. And that is good for all of us. And the idea that, we'll have the highest corporate tax rate in the industrialized world, it's the dumbest thing ever because corporations don't pay taxes. You pay the corporate taxes. They just add the cost to the bottom line, and we end up paying anyway. We end up getting screwed. So at 21%, we're now in the most competitive range, and especially the low repatriation of trillions potentially from overseas that have been parked that nobody would ever dare, bring back to this country because of the tax policies. It's all good for us. And don't we want to see, if you're worried about money for schools so that we can put in retired military concealed permit, retired police concealed permit, and protect our kids. Well, maybe this wealth creation and job creation is going to give school districts a little bit more money so that they can do the very thing that they need to do, which is protect our students. The Washington, I went through a number of different places and I got some information that nobody else in the media, I think, will tell you about. You have the Washington Post, Washington Times, Fox News, the Crime Prevention Research Center. And I know the media doesn't like the president's idea of allowing qualified teachers Only those that would like to voluntarily carry firearms with them. Only those that are trained want to do it. It's not anybody else. Teachers, I think, would probably rather teach and not have to worry about these things. That's why I prefer my plan, which is full, complete security checklist and full evaluation of every school in the country and a threat assessment of every school. Then you secure the perimeter. You secure the points of entry. You secure, at least have one armed retired police military on every floor and available if, God forbid, something happens. Then you have an ID system to let the kids in. And then you have nobody gets in that doesn't belong there. And on top of that, you have at least a front line of defense because most shootings are over in 3 minutes. Anyway, all these different groups, as I look through the information that they put out, there's a lot of good information. And it really doesn't matter what the media thinks. There are facts. You know, the media is saying if a teacher tried to stop a school shooter with his own gun, it would only create chaos and probably end up killing even more children. I love how they just make these things up. Well, there's quite a track record, actually, of armed civilians, in other words, average men and women, acting voluntarily, who made the decision to be trained and carry firearms, who have actually foiled mass shooters and saved countless lives. Now, it's happened in schools, it's happened in churches, it's happened in malls, it's happened in restaurants, dozens of times over the last few decades. And in no case I could find did any innocent bystander get shot by a good guy who was with a gun trying to stop a massacre. For example, the Washington Post, they had a story in 1997. Student eyewitnesses and shooting victims at Pearl High School at the rampage used phrases like unreal, like a horror movie, as they testified Wednesday about seeing Luke Woodham methodically point his deer rifle at them and pull the trigger at least 6 times. Assistant principal Joel Myrick heard the initial shot. He watched Woodham choosing his victims, and when Woodham appeared to be headed for a science wing where early classes were already underway, Myrick ran to his pickup truck, grabbed his .45 caliber pistol. I had my pistol sights on him. I could see the whites of his knuckles, he said. He reached into the car. He opened the driver's side door. He ordered Woodham to lie on the ground. I put my foot on his back area and pointed my pistol right at him. He couldn't bring it into the school because it was a gun-free school zone. Washington Post tells a story, April 98. Andrew Worst, 14, charged with fatally shooting John Gillette. 48, a science teacher at James Parker Middle School, as Gillette was chaperoning a prom for 8th graders in his 8th grade class. Anyway, after Worst shot Gillette in the head, police said that the teenager entered the banquet hall where his dressed up schoolmates were all dancing. He shot and wounded 2 other students and another teacher, and police said he began to flee from the hall. And as the 250 kids and teachers ran for cover, the owner of the hall, a guy by the name of James Strand, he grabbed a shotgun and he followed this guy out the door. He caught up with him, held him until authorities arrived. Was that bad? No, that would be a good thing. And there's another case in Colorado Springs, same thing. Another case in California, same thing. I can give you one example after another. The media will never give you these examples. That's why I asked the simple question. If you're ever, God forbid, in some type of public building and, God forbid, a shooting breaks out, would you rather have trained, retired, concealed carry military police there or not? I'll take them being there. I'd rather increase my odds of surviving. It's a simple proposition when you really think about it. If you are in any type of building that has an active shooter, would you rather know that there are trained professionals, retired military, retired police in the building with a concealed carry permit and a weapon? I think the answer for everybody is, yeah, I think so. What about if somebody broke into your house? Would you be glad you had taken the time and trained to use a firearm or not? Here's another example. This is in Colorado, 2007. Former cop, volunteer security worker, Jeannie Assam is her name, saved the day at New Life Church in Colorado Springs. Thousands of people were exiting from Mass that day as a shooter, Matthew Murphy, opened fire. Anyway, she ran towards the line of fire, killing the shooter, saving countless lives. You ever notice the media doesn't ever talk about these instances? California, 2001, a student, Charles Andy Williams, shot and killed 2 of his classmates, wounded 13 others before being subdued and held at gunpoint by an off-duty police officer who was bringing his daughter to school. I bet you didn't hear about that case either. Or in April of 2017, an Uber driver that had a concealed carry permit, he had to shoot and wound a gunman who had opened fire on a crowd of people in Chicago's Logan Square. I never heard that case until I looked it up today. Or an usher in Tennessee at a church used his personal firearm to subdue a masked gunman September of 2017 who had already killed 1 woman in the church's parking lot and injured 6 others inside. And you have a Fox News report. This is from Sutherland Springs, Texas, November 2017. Armed civilian using his assault rifle to stop Sunday mass murder of 26 churchgoers. Stephen Wildford, been heralded as a hero. He's a former National Rifle Association instructor. Lives next door to the First Baptist Church of Sutherland Springs, Texas. He grabbed his AR-15 after hearing the gunfire, went over to investigate. He confronted the shooter, shot him in the leg and torso before the guy dropped his weapon and fled the scene in his SUV. Would you rather have that person there or not? Pretty simple, fundamental question. All right, a lot to get to today. As we bring this up, one New Jersey school district voted for armed security guards. That's interesting, from New Jersey. An Ohio school is arming and training teachers to foil massacres. And in New York, Comrade de Blasio is ordering metal detectors for schools. He took them out, by the way, in 2015. All right, 25 till the top of the hour. All right, Olympics. By the way, did any of you like and watch much of the Olympics? I was proud of the women's hockey team. They won the gold and they beat Canada. That was pretty cool.
I've seen virtually none of it.
You've seen virtually. You didn't watch the curling?
No, I did want to see the U.S. Women's hockey team finally beat Canada, but it was on at 10 p.m. and ended at 2 a.m.?
Yeah, it was a shootout. It was because I never sleep, of course, I saw it, but I thought that was pretty cool. Anyone else? Sunshine?
I didn't watch any of it, but I'm just surprised that everyone loves curling so much. I guess it's like the sport that everyone thinks they can do because it doesn't really require much athletic ability.
Let me tell you something. If you watch the people that are doing that and they move it so quickly to clear the ice to get that little extra, it's an amazing, I don't know why, it's fascinating. My favorite is ski jumping, and I have no idea how these kids on those snowboards do the stuff that they do and don't die.
How about the moguls that they go on those moguls at high speed?
Listen, it's nuts. Your knees. I can't believe that everyone doesn't need a new knee after 5 years of banging their knees on those moguls. I never liked moguls when I was a big skier, but I'm watching. What's the name? Sean, the kid.
Shaun White.
Shaun White. I mean, it's like he almost has a hang time that defies gravity. If you watch the way he does it
for 100 years. I mean, Shaun White was doing this in the 90s, I think.
Yeah, but the thing is, he gets better and better and better every single time, and the number of twists and flips and whatever the hell they're doing up there. How could you be a parent and watch your kid do this without going insane? I remember when my kids were young and they were on a playground, I'd go insane, twitching all around because they are fearless. They don't know any better, and they're at the top of the monkey bars and they're holding on for dear life, and then they drop down. Oh, you're just thinking the worst is going to happen. Nothing usually does, but occasionally it does. And I could not live through my kids doing that type of twisting and turning and hanging in the air and just imagining what happens if they don't land right. I don't know how they do it. I mean, I guess that's why it's sort of like the old wide world of sports. Just different sports, the thrill of victory, the agony of defeat, the drama of human competition. Remember that?
You're dating yourself.
I'm totally dating myself. Why are you so quiet there, Miss Linda? Why are you?
Well, everybody was having such a nice little, rendezvous here on the air.
But you don't like sports anyway. You don't even know what a touchdown is.
I don't. I don't understand any of it. The only sport I like is hockey, and I have been watching the hockey, and I have been watching the skiers. It's actually really fun because I watch it with Liam, and Liam just gets the biggest kick out of the hockey teams, and we're screaming, and
maybe he's a hocky player. Let him play
this morning we saw a little bit of Germany and Canada got spanked, and that was amazing. And the German
where's this hatred from Canada of you guys coming?
Well,
from?
they got Trudeau, so Trudeau's having a lovely week as well. So it's just fun to bash Canada.
Yeah, well, we just had the Australian Prime Minister in town with the president. They did a joint presser together.
Right, that has nothing to do with my story at all. See, this is why I don't talk, because you're interrupting me about Australia.
Does anybody in there like Australia, New Zealand?
I was talking. You asked me to talk. I'm telling you a lovely story.
Why are you being so cranky?
I reclaim my time. I want to reclaim it.
Reclaiming my time.
Why are you so cranky
Here,
today?
I'll pretend to be Maxine and you be Minution, and
Why don't you just stop being cranky?
I'm reclaiming my time. I'm reclaiming my time.
Right, Maxine Waters doesn't have that thick New York accent.
That's why mine is so much better.
Okay. Well, what would you like to say? Go ahead.
I just thought it was so. It's exciting, like when you see these big, tough, like these manly men. They're skating around, they're beating the crap out of each other, and then they win, and they all start crying. And so Liam this morning is like, they're all crying, and Liam goes, "Oh, he got an ouchie. He's crying." I said, "No, he didn't get an ouchie. He got a gold medal." And he goes, "Gold medal, ouchie, mommy." I said, no, it was just hysterical.
Yeah.
I was dying laughing.
You know what is amazing though? Think of what was the swimmer's name? The guy that won all the gold medals recently. What?
Michael Phelps.
Michael Phelps, or going back years, I'll date myself. Mark Spitz back in the day, and remember diving? Greg Louganis, how good he was. And I don't get Lindsey Vonn. I know she didn't have a good year this year, and I know people are mad at her. Because she said, "I'm not going to the White House if I win," and all that nonsense. But you think about, you spend all these years training, and unless it's a sport that somebody really cares about, and maybe you have one shot at it, and that's even if you get to the finals, you get one shot at the gold, and then maybe you'll get the Wheaties box cover or some type of endorsement deal. But then after the Olympics, what do you do next? I know a lot of people start training again and prepare for the next 4 years, but you're literally talking about minutes in your life in most cases, in most of these sports, and it's not a lot of time. And the amount of effort and energy and training and dedication that goes into it, it's phenomenal that they want to do all of that. And the other thing, the only other question I have, when did Norway become the big medals winner? What happened to the U.S. this year? I was surprised.
I mean, they're saying that the U.S. isn't so hot this year.
Well, obviously. I mean, I think they have twice as many medals as we do.
Well, it's always frozen in Norway. You would think that they would be good in the Winter Olympics.
What are you going to make a comment like
Katie?
Did you hear the comment Katie Couric made?
No.
That people skate to work.
Oh God.
And they don't skate to work every day. Oh, she had to apologize because there was an outrage. People
oh my God!
outraged.
People are so easily outraged. Like, if you're getting outraged over that, we got problems.
Yeah,
like, lighten up.
Well, I thought I read it somewhere, and it just came flying out of my mouth that people skate to work on these ponds, and apparently they don't skate to work every day.
What do they think? They don't have roads there or something? I mean, what's the big deal?
I have no idea.
Wouldn't you like to skate to work?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind at all. Look, I tried to play hockey a few years back with some of my buddies. One of my closest friends, Keith. Keith still plays hockey. He plays with
actively?
Yeah, he plays ice hockey. It's the old man's league, but Boomer Esiason is in it. There's some really good teams and really good players. And he's been
Maybe that's what I'll do with my free time. I'll go play female ice hockey at night.
Listen, I think if your son likes hockey, you should put him. I loved hockey.
Oh, he's totally. I already got him a little mini baby hockey stick.
I'll teach him how to hit a slap shot. He'll score
right now,
he's
just
time.
beating up the dog, but other than that, he's doing great.
Beating up the dog. Is that what your son's beating up the dog?
It's really funny too because Winston thinks it's a toy, so then he eats the stick, and Liam's running around with the stick.
So you mean he uses the hockey stick to beat the dog?
He's not really beating the dog. He's two, but he doesn't understand what it is. I'm like, here, we hit the mini baby puck, and then he sees the baby puck, and he's like, here, Winston, and he chases Winston.
I can't wait for someone to take this out of context and put up Sean Hannity, producer, beats her dog with hockey stick.
Okay, for the record,
her 2.5-year-old son to beat a dog with a
No one loves animals more than me, and I have a ton of them, so it's all good.
Listen, you love animals so much that you fed that cat so much that it was the fattest cat ever in the history of mankind. Can you please
the cat was not that
nothing.
fat.
Can you take it? You still have pictures of that cat?
No.
You do. You're lying. You're absolutely lying through your teeth. No, you do have pictures of the cat.
The ridicule was too much. I couldn't take it anymore.
Well, let's put a picture of the cat.
No.
Because I think you were killing the cat because you were overfeeding the cat.
You're just not right in the head. You know that? You're not right.
I know it's
You're right.
not
The cat was much better off
the cat.
on the street, starving to death before I fed it.
Did you not have to save the cat's life? It was so morbidly obese. This was like 4 cats in 1 cat, that you had to send the cat to get like a personal trainer on a farm to save the cat's life, or the cat wasn't going to make it.
Are
True
you
or
done?
false?
Are you done? Are you having a good time today?
At least she's a caring
True
owner.
story or
Yeah,
false?
I care.
Are you body shaming the cat?
Yeah, your body. You're.
Oh
It's
my
not
God.
nice.
No, I'm body shaming the person that overfed the cat.
You're going to need to issue an
owner
apology like
shaming.
Katie Couric.
I'm owner shaming the owner that overfed
Owner
the
shaming
cat.
the owner who overfed the fat shaming of the cat. Of
The
body
cat
shaming.
was the size. Put the cat up on the website and let people decide. Did you overfeed the cat? We'll make it our question of the day.
Oh my God.
I think you need to put that up.
I'll consider it.
So you do have pictures, which means you just lied to me when you said you did not have pictures. Why
I
did
will
you lie?
evaluate my photo library
You're
and
going to
get back to you. I'm
reevaluate.
going to
You're not gonna
reevaluate.
You have pictures of the cat. It's in your phone right now. You could put it up in 10 seconds, but you're now evaluating.
I'm going to evaluate. I'll get back to you.
All right, let me get
Thank
back
God
to
it's
issues.
Friday. You need beers immediately.
Okay. What time? I got TV tonight. I can't. Hey, all right. So the Olympics are winding down. President announced a new sanction package today against North Korea that's tougher than anything that's ever been implemented so far. Good for him. And he announced today a new package of sanctions aimed at cutting off all the smuggling routes that the regime is using to evade a UN embargo to fund its nuclear weapons program. And he said, I'm announcing that we are launching the largest ever set of new sanctions on the North Korean regime. He said that, by the way, according to his CPAC speech. He said that
I do want to say, because people have asked, North Korea, we imposed today the heaviest sanctions ever imposed on a country before. And frankly, hopefully something positive can happen. We will see. But hopefully something positive can happen. But that just was announced, and I want to let you know we have imposed the heaviest sanctions ever imposed.
Why didn't he just give him billions of dollars like Obama and Clinton did? Where does the mindset from somebody come from? Oh, death to America, death to Israel, burn the American flag, burn the Israeli flag. And let me bring in a few cargo planes with $150 billion in American and foreign currency. And let's pay the mullahs. And we're saying, please, can we bribe you into liking us? 5 seconds after the money comes in, the next thing that happens is they're saying death to America again. It was the same thing Bill Clinton tried to bribe Kim Jong-il, who's Kim Jong-un's father. And that didn't work with trillions of dollars and energy and others. It's insane. This is a form of insanity. All right, we have at the top of the next hour, we have Sarah Carter and we have Greg Jarrett. I want to set the scene for you, though. Paul Sperry has an amazing column out today in the New York Post, and he's talking about the House Intelligence Committee chair, Devin Nunes, and how he's examining whether the vaunted Obama intelligence community assessment claiming that Russia meddled in the presidential election was actually based on that bogus Hillary Clinton bought and paid for dossier. And Nunes discovered the findings that the Obama intelligence assessment, the OIA, mirror almost exactly the made-up crap that Hillary Clinton had her henchmen stick in that dossier. So from Sperry's column, he says, suspiciously, Barack Obama's intelligence community assessment, the ICA, matches the main allegations leveled by the Clinton paid-for dossier on Trump, which wormed its way into the intelligence channels in addition to the FBI, Justice Department, and State Department during the 2016 campaign. Now, this is important. In fact, it looks like the dossier makes the exact same claim, and that is into what the Obama intelligence community is now echoing the dossier. Now, remember, the dossier was never verified by anybody, not by Fusion GPS, not by anybody in the FBI, DOJ, nobody. So they're basically mirroring the exact same thing, that Putin personally ordered the cyber attacks on the Clinton campaign and leaked embarrassing emails to bolster Trump. Well, the person that, quote, leaked those emails is a guy, we know who it is, Julian Assange of WikiLeaks. And I think we're like the only people in American media that have actually taken the time to go to London to sit down and ask him. And he denies it vehemently that it was Russia or any state. But I'd like to know, and he has the answer, by the way, of who did it. I'd like to find out eventually who did. Anyway, staff investigators now for Devin Nunes' Intelligence Committee are now going over every word of the ICA, including classified footnotes, to see if any of the analysis was pre-cooked based on the Clinton bought and paid for dossier. Now, James Clapper, Obama's director of national intelligence, he said in a recent CNN interview that the ICA was based on, quote, some of the substantive content of the dossier. Well, nobody verified any of it. There's still people now trying to verify it that are being paid to try and verify it. And Clapper also admitted that he broke with tradition. He didn't put the assessment to all 17 U.S. intelligence agencies for review. Instead, he says he limited input to a couple of dozen handpicked analysts from 3 agencies, the CIA, the NSA, and the FBI, and that the report was drafted under the supervision of his office. And all 3 agencies agreed Putin hacked and leaked Clinton's emails. Can you please give us the information that proves that? Because that's not what the person that leaked them says. And the Defense Intelligence Agency, Homeland Security, State Department's Intelligence Bureau, other agencies with relevant expertise on Russia were all excluded. Unbelievable. We'll use it for a phony FISA warrant, and we'll all tell each other it's true, and we'll pat each other on the back. Hillary wins, and nobody would know the difference. Didn't work out that way. I actually have friends of mine questioning whether or not it's really true. If Linda's cat blew up to 4 times its normal size because she overfed the cat, the answer is absolutely it's true.
It's true in your mind.
Breaking news now.
No, I want to know why you won't put it online so that people can see that what I was talking about, you fed the cat to death. The cat
Fine,
nearly died.
I will find a picture and I will put it up there.
You don't know. It's not fine. You're going to find it. You have it in your phone right now, and you're not telling the truth.
Well, you just said I fed it to death, so I guess that, she's no longer with us.
Almost to death. By the way, is the cat still around? I have no idea.
Yes,
Do you check in with the new owner?
She's with my father-in-law.
How much weight has the cat lost?
I don't know. I guess he feeds her.
Does the cat look like it did when? Why don't you put the before and after pictures after you send it to the
She's
farm?
always beautiful, whatever her size.
Of course, but I didn't say she wasn't beautiful. I just said that you nearly killed her, which is a big difference.
I kill no animals.
All right, Sarah Carter, Greg Jarrett next.
Defense lawyer's perspective, it's a perjury trap. I think from the rule of law perspective, just tell the truth. If you're under oath, you've got to tell the truth. That's why we have the indictments now of General Flynn. I read through that indictment. The indictment is a little odd, to be honest, because the general was conducting, Mike Flynn, was conducting foreign policy in preparation for the camp. But paragraph 5 of that nails him on failure to register. That had nothing to do with collusion. It had everything to do with Turkey, the government of Turkey, and so on and so forth.
Well, that goes back to the whole argument about the law being too broad with the special counsel and the parameters by which you or others work.
That's correct. And Congress, when we had the law, we don't have it. Bill, let me just say this: we don't have that law now. That law was allowed to expire.
Okay, understood. Good clarification.
And I think that's a good thing.
When did you first learn of the so-called Steele dossier and what Christopher Steele was doing?
Well, it was not a very well-kept secret among press circles for several months before it came out. And it was in late summer of 2016 when there were some individuals from the various U.S. news outlets who asked me about my familiarity with it. And I had heard just snippets about it. I did not know what was in there. I did not see it until later in that year. I think it was in December. But I was unaware of the provenance of it, as well as what was in it. And it did not play any role whatsoever in the intelligence community assessment that was done, that was presented to then President Obama and then President-elect Trump.
How was the Steele dossier treated? How did you treat it? You said you looked at it in December. I assume it's been looked at it was obviously looked at by the FBI. We've now learned they've tried to confirm some of it and have had some success. Some not yet. They say it's unconfirmed, but that's about it.
Well, there were things in that dossier that made me wonder whether or not they were in fact accurate and true. And I do think it was up to the FBI to see whether or not they could verify any of it. I think Jim Comey has said that it contained salacious and unverified information. Just because it was unverified didn't mean it wasn't true. And if the Russians were involved in something like that, directed against individuals who are aspiring to the highest office in this land, there was an obligation on the part of the FBI to seek out the truth on it.
All right, that was Brennan, who we now know, along with Clapper, got a letter from Devin Nunes, 10 specific questions as it relates to the dossier. Now that all of this is making its way up the ladder in the Obama administration, one thing Devin Nunes is doing today, Paul Sperry had a great column that Nunes is investigating whether the Trump dossier was the basis for Obama's Russiagate intelligence assessment, which, by the way, we need to know because Obama's intelligence community assessment matches the main allegations that were leveled in the Clinton-paid dossier that nobody had verified, which wormed their way into the intelligence channels, in addition to the FBI, the Department of Justice, the Department of State, all at the beginning of the campaign in 2016. In fact, the shady dossier makes exactly the same claim that Putin personally ordered the cyber attacks on the Clinton campaign and leaked embarrassing emails to bolster Trump. Now, the person that put those emails out for public review is Julian Assange of WikiLeaks. He's told us multiple times on this show and on TV that it was not Russia. It was no state agency at all. So that would be contradictory to that. Do they have any evidence that it came from Putin? And staff investigators for Devin Nunes and the intelligence community are now going over every single word of the ICA, the Intelligence Community Assessment, including classified footnotes, to see if any of the analysis was pre-cooked based on this phony bought and paid for dossier. And we also have Comey agreeing, by the way, to his first interview since his firing. His book is done, and he's going to appear with George Stephanopoulos. Sure, why not go right directly to Clinton's number one fan in the media? Unbelievable. Joining us now, we have Sarah Carter, investigative reporter for the Fox News Channel, and Greg Jarrett, Fox News legal analyst. Welcome, both of you, to the program.
Good to be here.
Thank you.
Well, that and now we have this investigation into whether or not this judge in Michael Flynn's case is looking for exculpatory evidence that could have been withheld. But we have a lot going on today. Sarah, we'll start with you. What do you make about this piece by Paul Sperry and Nunes investigating whether the dossier was the basis for the Russian intelligence assessment?
Well, I can certainly say with, absolute certainty, talking to sources here in Washington, that they are looking very closely at the assessment and that they're looking directly at Brennan. Remember John Brennan? He was the same, the former chief of the CIA who said in a hearing to Trey Gowdy that he couldn't exactly recall when Trey Gowdy asked him directly whether or not there was an ambassador that had been unmasking Americans. He said, it rings a vague bell, but I can't really remember. And, so here's the same man who has these denials. He's very good at being very careful with his words. And Paul Sperry is right on when he makes the accusation that still there has been no evidence to prove that it was the Russians that actually did the hacking, and they've never been able to prove that with definitive certainty, showing the actual facts. So I think what's going to happen here is that the House Intelligence Committee is going to look very carefully at this. Remember, they didn't just ask Clapper and Brennan. They also asked Comey the same 10 questions, Sean. And this is going to be vitally important because they're going to have to answer these questions. If they don't, I believe they will be subpoenaed to answer those questions before them because they know now that something went really wrong and that they were using this dossier as a means to investigate the president. And we know now there's a lot of connections with people very close to Hillary Clinton that were involved in this dossier, people like Sidney Blumenthal, others from the State Department that were feeding Christopher Steele information on what they term a second dossier. A lot of people believe that same information was used in the original dossier that Christopher Steele had. So there is a mess in Washington right now, and I think everybody's trying to sort this out.
This, to me, Greg, is pretty fascinating because you now have Devin Nunes of the House Intel Committee examining whether the vaunted Obama intelligence community assessment claiming that Russia meddled in the presidential election, now we're examining whether or not that was based on the Clinton bought and paid for phony Russian dossier that nobody had ever verified. And because he's looking at these Obama intelligence assessments and they mirror exactly what's in the dossier. So nobody checked it out. It's used for a FISA warrant and it's used in the intelligence community assessment?
Right. The intelligence community assessment was largely put together by the CIA, the NSA, and the FBI. And I would emphasize the CIA then run by John Brennan. He appears to have played an instrumental role in instigating the Russian hoax and disseminating the fictitious dossier. And in fact, a House Intelligence Committee, who's been probing Brennan's actions, one of their senior aides, and I'll quote here, John Brennan did more than anyone to promulgate the dirty dossier. He politicized and weaponized what was false intelligence against Trump. So what did Brennan do? Well, when he learned of the dossier, he allegedly not just gave it to the FBI and Democrats on Capitol Hill, but certain members of the media were alerted. And according to his testimony before the House Intelligence Committee, Brennan seemed to acknowledge that he was among the first individuals to have access to this dossier, and guess what? Soon thereafter, the FBI was alerted and opened the Trump-Russia investigation. That was never launched because Papadopoulos got drunk in a London pub and started mouthing. I mean, that was preposterous. The New York Times totally got used on that, which just shows, A, how gullible they are, and B, how biased they are to buy into that canard. No, it was the dossier, which was used to try to frame Trump, launching a false investigation, and then spying on Trump associates and continuing to spy after the president took office. It's unbelievable.
Go ahead, Sarah.
Another very, very important point that Greg brought up there. And remember, let's go back to when they first briefed then President Obama and then President Trump as well on the dossier. When that happened, when they briefed President-elect Trump and President Obama on this dossier, it was John Brennan who was there as well. And nobody took this dossier seriously in the media. They were afraid of printing it. It was being shopped all around Washington, D.C. A lot of reporters remember this. Then you had Christopher Steele briefing reporters on the background beforehand. Nobody published the dossier until they made it official, until they went and briefed both presidents on this. They briefed President Trump, President-elect Trump, then President Obama, and shortly afterwards, Sean, is when BuzzFeed published the entire dossier and everybody started to roll with it. They had to make this dossier somehow valid. They had to give it some kind of credence so they could spread this unverified and salacious dossier.
Sperry makes another point about this because, I think it's very critical that Nunes is asking Brennan and Clapper what he knows in terms of the dossier, and those questions I think will be very revealing if we get answers. But in Sperry's piece, what he's pointing out, is that James Clapper, the director of national intelligence under Obama, conceded in a recent CNN interview that the ICA was based on some of the substantive content of the dossier. And Clapper also admitted he broke with tradition and didn't put out the assessment to all 17 U.S. intelligence agencies for review. And instead, he limited it to just a couple of hand-picked analysts from 3 agencies, the CIA, the NSA, and the FBI. Interestingly, that the report was drafted under the supervision of his office, and all 3 agencies, quote, agreed. But the defense, again, that bypassed the normal procedures. Why would that be?
Well, because, they were pulling a fast one, Clapper and Brennan. At the end of the day, you're going to find out that Clapper, Brennan, and Comey, knew this thing was completely absurd. Rumors, innuendos, supposition, wild speculation. That's why reporters who knew about it and read it laughed at it and wouldn't print it. And that frustrated Clapper and Comey and Brennan. And so they tried to somehow legitimize it, and only when they were able to do that did BuzzFeed finally
print it. And you said you've read it so many times that it makes you laugh every time you read it.
Every time. It never gets old.
All right, stay right there. We got to take a break. More with Greg Jarrett, more with Sarah Carter. 800-941-SEAN, our number. All right, as we continue, Greg Jarrett is with us along with Sarah Carter as we continue our investigation into Deep State Gate, and it gets more interesting by the minute. So you got these additional charges, none of which surprised me as it related to Paul Manafort. And, of course, Rick Gates is cutting a deal. The biggest development that I see, though, is this whole issue of the judge in the case of General Flynn. Greg, let's start with you. He's asking for any and all exculpatory evidence, and he will decide what is exculpatory.
That's right. The judge is Emmett Sullivan, very well known, and he was the judge in the Senator Ted Stevens case, the Alaska senator prosecuted for corruption. In the end, it was all tossed out. Why? Because prosecutors cheated, as they often do. They cheated in a way that is really quite unconscionable. They knew that there was exculpatory evidence that would help Stevens, but they deliberately, willfully withheld it. And so, Sullivan, I don't know him, but what I've read of him, he has now this ingrained skepticism toward prosecutors, and he has now demanded that these prosecutors, even though there's been a Flynn guilty plea entered, I'm demanding that you turn over any exculpatory evidence. And I'll tell you what's exculpatory. It appears that there's some evidence that the FBI officials who actually interviewed Flynn, and by the way, they had no business interviewing him. He hadn't done anything wrong.
All right, Sarah, we'll give you let's give Sarah the last word. We're just running out of time.
Okay, sorry.
Well, no, absolutely. I mean, Greg brought up a very good point. I mean, I think with General Flynn's case, if you just go back to the very beginning and you realize that Comey had made the announcement that both of the agents that originally interviewed Flynn had actually not believed he had lied. And they interviewed him anyways when they shouldn't have interviewed him, or they should have shared the transcripts with him. He was doing his job. Then you see the pressure of the special counsel putting pressure on them both financially and threatening apparently his family, threatening his son. And all of a sudden you see people cave in to the special counsel. Look, without Flynn, without Mueller being able to get guilty pleas, Flynn, Papadopoulos, he can't take the next step forward to go after the president. And he used a dossier. This dossier was used to open this investigation. It's an unverified and salacious dossier that has no relevance, and there's over a year we haven't seen any collusion between the president and Russia. And they opened the special counsel investigation, and there are a lot of questions here. And they've been strong-arming people into guilty pleas, and we've seen that. And we're just going to look and see where the next step is. I mean, you played that clip from the beginning. Should the president talk to the special counsel? I'm not a legal expert here, but I would be very concerned about some type of an entrapment.
All right, guys, I got to let you go. Great work as always. We appreciate it. 800-941-SEAN if you want to be a part of the program. The president speaking at CPAC this morning, he went on an hour and 15 minutes. We have the best of that speech coming up in our News Roundup information overload portion of the program. We'll get to your calls coming up next as well. 800-941-SEAN and Phil Robertson of Duck Dynasty. He's always a trip and a lot of fun as we continue this busy Friday. All right, 25 now till the top of the hour. 800-941-SEAN. President at CPAC today. We're going to play some of that speech in our News Roundup information overload and your calls. And Phil Robertson coming up next hour. But, all right, it's been a busy week. Let's get to our busy phones because many of you have been very, very patient. Mark is in the great state of Alabama. What's up, Mark? How are you? Where do you live in Alabama?
I actually live in the south part. I used to...
In Montgomery?
No, small little town called Dothan.
I know. Yeah, I know what Dothan is. Of course I've heard. I lived in Alabama. Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. So I didn't know that.
Oh.
The reason I'm calling is the school I went to was actually in Northwest Florida, and they had a lot of the same security measures you were talking about. They kept 1 point entry. All the doors were locked other than the 1 point, and that was to the foyer right next to the office. And they had a off-duty officer that was there at all times the school was open.
Look, I can tell you from my experience, when my kids were younger, they went to a particular school. I won't say what the school is. Why embarrass them? That was Hannity kids. But you did not get into the school except through one door. And I'm not one of these parents that spends a lot of time at school unless somebody's getting in trouble or I have to go to one of those stupid, boring, monotonous parent-teacher meetings. But when I would go, I'd walk in, or if the kids forgot a book or their lunch or something, I'd drop it off. Not very often. I'd walk in. First thing the guy would say is, "Hi, Mr. Hannity," and then I'd have to give him my license. And that is the way. Every single entry point needs to be secure. Any other place that kids can get in needs to be secure as well. And you need to have enough people hired that you have enough security. I would say you need a retired concealed carry military guy on every floor. You definitely have to take care of the perimeter outside the school, and you've got to take care of every building inside the school. Some of these schools have multiple buildings. You can't tell me that it's impossible to do this when we do it at football games, baseball games, concerts, and I'm not talking about Vegas, the outdoor concert, I'm talking about arenas and so on. We can do it. We secure our banks. You can't go into the bank and rob the bank blind. You're going to get in trouble. You're going to be facing somebody with a gun. And if we just take those precautionary measures, look, evil is evil. And I said this last night, the Sarnov brothers used a bomb that they made and produced with everyday materials that anybody can buy. You can buy a pressure cooker, you can buy the nails, and you can, set up an explosive, sadly, fairly easily. And then the worst school shooting was Virginia Tech when they used handguns. And 32 people were killed in that shooting. And it's just not the answer. Securing the school and putting a priority on it that we're not going to let these kids feel this fear. They ought to be able to go to school with confidence and know that somebody's not going to get in the building and start shooting them up. And if the kids have IDs going in, and if they go through metal detectors going in, just like we all have to do when we fly in an airplane, it's really not that big a deal. At the end of the day, is it, you got to get to the airport an hour early. Does it really make that big a difference? It doesn't. It's pretty quick. And, the confidence of knowing that the guy next to me doesn't have a gun that he's going to pull out mid-flight is reassuring to me. And I think most people, and I think the kids, it's just the reality, unfortunately, of the world we live in. There's evil. Brenda is in Oregon. Brenda, how are you? Glad you called.
Good, and how are you doing?
I'm great. It's Friday. We made it.
I know. Okay, so what I wanted to say is when Obama was talking about with Romney, how, what he said about Russian trying to interfere, and he debunked that, and then Trump said something. And
the 2008 debate. Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so anyway, but when then right after the election happened, it was like Obama, he went ahead and sent like 35 diplomats back like ASAP. So is that because he was mad, or do you think the Russians maybe?
No, I think Obama really, for whatever reason, Obama believed in his mind and his heart that America is this, horrible superpower, and that we have too much influence in the world. That influence is not good for the world, and it doesn't foster diversity and so on and so forth. And I think he's just got everything ass backwards. I mean, he is a classic appeaser. And his mindset is that, if we're nicer to you, then you're going to be nicer to us. And tell Vladimir I'll have more flexibility after the election.
My last election, after my election, I have more flexibility.
Well, after my election, I'll have more flexibility. I can't tell the American people the truth of what I'm really going to do. Think of the mindset. What rational human being would ever go along with an idiotic idea of dropping off, $150 billion in American currency and other currencies and give it to the Iranian mullahs that are chanting death to America? There's a particular mindset there that I can't relate to in any way, because that's an appeasement mindset. There are certain of us that I think are far more rooted in reality. Neville Chamberlain had that appeasing mindset, and he believed that Great Britain could have peace in their time with the Nazis. Well, it didn't work out that way. And people in the beginning thought somebody like Winston Churchill was nuts. You know, they said about Reagan that he was a California cowboy that talked about the evil empire and that he'd start World War III. And he ended up bringing an end to the Cold War, and he didn't have to fire a shot. And he said the now infamous words, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. And he did it. Clinton had an appeaser mindset, too. Bill Clinton gave Kim Jong-il, Kim Jong-un's father, gave him, $3 billion in energy and all sorts of subsidies. Well, with a promise that they're never going to build a nuclear weapon. Well, how did that work out for the world? Not too good. So I really don't, for the life of me, understand the mindset of so many people. But I do think that, I think that both Secretary Clinton at the time and Barack Obama were naive. Let's say hi to Anthony is in Annapolis in Maryland. What's up, Anthony? How are you, sir?
Hey, Sean, thanks for taking my call. The reason that I called is because I've actually come up. I'm a wounded warrior and a disabled combat vet from OEF and OIF. I've actually come up with a very unique solution to this whole gun issue that we're facing today. When I joined the Army, the day that I showed up in basic training, they didn't just give me a rifle and go, here, go defend your country. They trained me. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
My proposal is this. I think that if you're under the age of 25 and you want to purchase a firearm, you should have to go through a state-certified or federally certified training program for firearms. So you go and you sign up for a class, and let's say it's 4 Saturdays out of a month. You pay a fee to the state, you go take this class. That licensed, certified weapons expert would then have a prolonged interaction with that prospective gun owner to determine whether or not they are competent with a firearm and whether or not they are mentally.
Well, let me tell you what I recently went through in Florida, because I want to get my carry permit in Florida, okay? Mm-hmm. And I've been a pistol marksman since I'm 12 years old. I've been trained since I'm 11. And so to get a carry permit, you have to go and take a safety course. And I went and I took the safety course, and I was the only one in the class. And the guy starts asking me a few questions, and I gave him my background, my knowledge of firearms, etc. And he went through every bit of the curriculum anyway. Mm-hmm. And he did the right thing, and then he brought me to the range. I hit the bullseye like 6 straight times, and he goes, okay, I think you're set, and here's your certificate. Get out of here.
Right.
But, I don't have a problem with that. Anybody that asks me that doesn't have a gun what kind of gun they should get, my advice is just go get training. Go to a range. These guys at these ranges are the most giving people you'll ever meet. They, don't be embarrassed that you don't know. I don't know why there's a pride associated with individuals that we don't want to ask other people sometimes for help. I was at a range recently in Florida over Christmas, and I went down there and I was shooting, and there was a particular gun I had no familiarity with, and I went and I got the guy because my son's friend was actually firing it, and I said, would you mind showing me, how to use this particular firearm? I didn't want to pick it up. I didn't want to touch it until I understood it. And that's just my training and working its way into me being on the range. The guy was great, came over, explained the entire weapon to me, went through it 3 times on his own, watched me do it once, then said, okay, you all set? Yes, sir. Thank you. And that was it. Well, I'm not ashamed to ask if I don't know something in particular. I don't know everything. But the people that I know that love firearms, they're more than happy to teach. They're more than happy to tell. They're more than happy to guide you and help you. And, if you're a woman and you want a lighter gun and one that doesn't have a lot of kick, they'll help you find the weapon you're most comfortable with. I mean, some of these ranges down in Florida are just amazing because you can actually rent any weapon that they've got on the premises, and they'll show you how to use it. And, then it becomes like a fun experience. It's like, going bowling or going to a movie. You go shooting with your friends, and you have a good time. It's a lot of fun. Although my kids don't seem to be too interested in it, which is fine with me, too. I've taken them to the range. They're like, okay, Dad, can we go now? I was very different when I was 11 years old, and every kid has their own area of interest. But you raise a good point. I had no problem sitting in that class, no problem with the curriculum. It frankly was a good reminder. There was nothing I didn't know, but it was a good reminder for me, a good refresher for me. And I was glad that they do that down in Florida. It's not going to challenge your ability or the time frame in which you can purchase a firearm.
CNN went on. They said, Donald Trump wants all teachers. Okay? Fake news, folks. Fake news. Fake news. I don't want a person that's never handled a gun, that wouldn't know what a gun looks like, to be armed. But out of your teaching population, you have 10%, 20% of very gun-adept people. Military people, law enforcement people, they teach. They teach. And something I thought of this morning, you know what else? And I thought of it since I found and watched Peterson, the deputy who didn't go into the school because he didn't want to go into the school. Okay? He was tested under fire, and that wasn't a good result. But you know what I thought of as soon as I saw that? These teachers, and I've seen them at a lot of schools where they had problems, these teachers love their students, and the students love their teachers in many cases. These teachers love their students, and these teachers are talented with weaponry and with guns. And they feel safe. And I'd rather have somebody that loves their students and wants to protect their students than somebody standing outside that doesn't know anybody and doesn't know the students and, frankly, for whatever reason, decided not to go in, even though we heard lots of shots being fired inside.
All right, back to our phones we go. John, a liberal from Alabama. What's up, John, the liberal from Alabama? How are you?
Hey, how you doing, Sean?
I'm good. What's going on?
I was saying I listened to you regular for the last couple of years, and especially this year, because you're a big Trump supporter. I was saying, if you feel that he's so innocent, why your case is not being tried on the mainstream is just like you're just on your radio show and your TV show saying things, why it doesn't catch or help him in the process to go on and get it over with. I don't understand.
I'm not understanding your question. Say it a little differently.
I said, every day you get on the radio, you say he didn't collude. I'm saying, why is it so hard for you to convince the government, the FBI, Mueller, and all of them that? Why they're not listening to you?
Well, look, they have an agenda. That's number one. Number two, beyond anybody's imagination, if you really pay close attention, you'll notice that they're not talking about Trump-Russia collusion anymore. And even if you watch the Sunday shows, things we've been talking about for months, like the dossier, that's now part of everyday Sunday programming. And as much as they have tried their hardest to avoid it all, they've not been successful. So, it takes a little while for the media to catch up with us. And, I was right about Obama. And, I predicted what would happen in Baltimore. And I predicted what would happen in Ferguson. And I predicted, a lot of different things. They all get wrong because they're kind of a bunch of sheep and a bunch of followers. But where, truth and facts are now dragging them into the arena where they never wanted to go. And it's only going to get more pronounced in the days to come. But they do their level best to avoid covering it. And they're angry that, there hasn't been an indictment of Donald Trump. And they're still waiting for it. Anyway, thanks for the call. All right, News Roundup Information Overload Hour here on this Friday. By the way, Phil Robertson at the bottom of the hour is going to check in with us. He's always a lot of fun. 800-941-SEAN is the number. We'll get to some of your calls here in just a minute. So we were at CPAC the last couple of days. I love CPAC because these are kids, many of them, from colleges all around the country. And you see, it's just, we only see on television those kids that only seem to love and worship at the altar of all things liberal, leftist, statist, Obama, etc. And you'd almost think when you see any scene on a college campus that there aren't young conservatives. I have no idea why. My parents were not overly political, but when I was young, I was drawn to conservative thought and talk radio, and I would listen and I'd follow, and I was interested in the Cold War, and I followed every minute of Reagan's presidency. Anyway, so the president goes there today, and he speaks to this crowd of young people. He just pretty much threw a lot of the speech by the side, did a lot of ad-libbing, had a lot of fun, and was just being his fun, combative self, and the crowd absolutely loved it. Here's part of it.
Because, I kept trying to say, why is this? But it's just there. So the great enthusiasm, you're sitting back, you're watching television. Maybe I don't have to vote today. We just won the presidency. And then we get clobbered And we can't let that happen. We get clobbered in 18, and we can't let that happen, only because we are so happy. We pass so many things. Honestly, and I'll use the word my administration as opposed to me. My administration, I think, has had the most successful first year in the history of the presidency. I really believe that. I really believe it. We've ended the war on American energy. We were in war. And we've ended the war on beautiful, clean coal, one of our great natural resources. And very important for our defense, coal. Very important for our defense, because we have it. We don't have to send it through pipes. We don't have to get it from foreign countries. We have more than anybody. And they wanted to end it. And our miners have been mistreated, and they're not being mistreated anymore. We're doing tremendous business. I was in Vietnam, and the Prime Minister and the President of Vietnam were there. And we have a massive deficit with them like we do with everybody else because these presidents have just let it go to hell. We have the worst trade deals you've ever seen. So we're changing it. So I said, we have too big a deficit with Vietnam. I'm not happy. He said, well, but we're going to... I said, buy coal. Buy coal. They use a lot of coal. Buy coal. And he said, we have bought coal from West Virginia and other places, and it's the finest coal we've ever used. It's interesting. And West Virginia now is doing great. You look at what's happening in West Virginia. You look at what's happening in Pennsylvania. You look at what's happening in Ohio. You look at what's happening in Wyoming. You look at what's happening all over. It's like a different world. And remember this. Virtually as soon as I got into office, we approved the Keystone XL pipeline and the Dakota Access pipelines, which would never have been approved. And we announced our withdrawal from the totally disastrous, job-killing, wealth-knocking out, it knocked out our wealth, or it would have. They basically wanted to take our wealth away. They didn't want us to use our wealth power. We knocked out the Paris Climate Accord. Would have been a disaster. We're doing record business. We're doing business, and you have to look at the fundamentals. Companies are pouring back into this country. They're pouring back. When did you hear about car companies coming back into Michigan and coming to Ohio and expanding? When did you hear? You never heard that. You hear they're leaving. I've been talking about it for 20 years. I was a private sector guy, but for whatever reason, I always had these guys always covered me much more than anybody else. I always got a lot of these characters. They used to treat me so good, too, until I ran for office. I used to get the greatest publicity. A friend of mine said, you used to be the king of getting great publicity. What happened? I said, well, I have some views that they're opposed to for a lot of bad reasons. A lot of really bad reasons. But when you look at what's happening to our country, it's incredible. And the fundamentals are so strong. The stock market, I just see with all of the ups and downs since Election Day, is up 37% from election. 37%. It did a little bit of a correction. In fact, I started to say, I was in it for like 13, 14 months from election. I say, is this sucker ever going down a little bit? This is a little embarrassing. It was up 100, up 200, up 1,000, up 150, up 90, up 63. I said, good, that's better. Hey, we've got 7 years to go, folks. We got a long time to go. Somebody got on television recently and they said, actually, this is the first time I can remember Trump made campaign promises. He may be the only person that actually fulfilled more promises than he made. I think that's true. I fulfilled more promises. But we have a very crooked media. We had a crooked candidate too, by the way. But we have a very, very crooked media. Somebody got on television recently and they said, actually, this is the first time I can remember Trump made campaign promises. He may be the only person that actually fulfilled more promises than he made. I think that's true. I fulfilled more promises. But we have a very crooked media. We had must have strong borders. We celebrate our history and our heroes, and we believe young Americans should be taught to love their country and to respect its traditions. Don't worry, you're getting the wall. Don't worry, okay? I heard some. I had a couple of these characters in the back say, "Oh, he really doesn't want the wall. He just used that for campaigning." I said, can you believe it? You know, I say every time I hear that, the wall gets 10 feet higher. You know that, right? Every single time. Okay. Now we're going to have the wall, or they're not going to have what they want. It's time to make our schools a much harder target for attackers. We don't want them in our schools. We don't want them. When we declare our schools to be gun-free zones, it just puts our students in far more danger. Far more danger. Well-trained, gun-adept teachers and coaches and people that work in those buildings, people that were in the Marines for 20 years and retired, people in the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Coast Guard, people that are adept with weaponry and with guns. They teach. I mean, I don't want to have 100 guards standing with rifles all over the school. You do a concealed carry permit. And this would be a major deterrent because these people are inherently cowards. If they thought, like if this guy thought that other people would be shooting bullets back at him, he wouldn't have gone to that school. He wouldn't have gone there. It's a gun-free zone. It says this is a gun-free zone. Please check your guns way far away. And what happens is they feel safe. There's nobody going to come at them. This way, you may have, and remember, if you use this school as an example, this is a very big school with tremendous floor area and a lot of acreage. It's a big, big school, good school, a big, big school. You'd have to have 150 real guards. Look, you had one guard. He didn't turn out to be too good, I will tell you that. He turned out to be not good. He was not a credit to law enforcement. That I can tell you. That I can tell you. But as I've been talking about this idea, and I feel it's a great idea, but some people that are good people are opposed to it. They don't like the idea of teachers doing that. But I'm not talking about teachers. You know, CNN went on. They said, Donald Trump wants all teachers. Okay? Fake news, folks. Fake news. Fake news. I don't want a person that's never handled a gun, that wouldn't know what a gun looks like, to be armed. But out of your teaching population, you have 10%, 20% of very gun-adept people. Military people, law enforcement people, they teach. And something I thought of this morning, you know what else? And I thought of it since I found and watched Peterson, the deputy who didn't go into the school because he didn't want to go into the school. Okay? He was tested under fire, and that wasn't a good result. But you know what I thought of as soon as I saw that? These teachers, and I've seen them at a lot of schools where they had problems, these teachers love their students, and the students love their teachers in many cases. These teachers love their students, and these teachers are talented with weaponry and with guns. And they feel safe. And I'd rather have somebody that loves their students and wants to protect their students than somebody standing outside that doesn't know anybody and doesn't know the students and, frankly, for whatever reason, decided not to go in even though he heard lots of shots being fired inside. And a teacher would have shot the hell out of him before he knew what happened.
All right, so the president earlier today at CPAC, and I will tell you, it's one of the events that I really enjoy going to every year. I've been there now, how many years? We've done at least 3 years in a row. We did it many years ago. We went through a period where we didn't go, and it was just fun to get back there and see a lot of people and do the television program from there 2 nights in a row was so fun. right, let's hit our busy telephones as I've been promising. All right, let's go to Kurt is in St. George out in Utah. Kurt, how are you? Happy Friday. Welcome to the Sean Hannity Show.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you for taking my call.
Yes, sir. What can I do for you?
Hey, I just wanted to point out that with all this controversy and everything going on and everybody bad-mouthing the NRA, I am a member of the NRA, and the number one thing that the NRA promotes is safety, gun safety. And that's what they're leaving all that out. We promote, the Second Amendment. Of course we do. But gun safety is the number one thing.
I got to tell you something. I've had a lifetime of experience dealing with people in the NRA and people at gun ranges and people that are trained in the use of firearms. The NRA, they are noted for their gun safety at courses and self-defense courses. And the first thing they teach is gun safety. The thing about every time I've ever been to a gun range, every single time, the thing that stands out the most is that if there's ever anybody there that ever needs any help, maybe a novice or maybe they want to try a different weapon out or something, the level of assistance that people with a lot of knowledge are willing to give to others is unprecedented. There's and every single person understands the safety issue. The safest people with guns are people that are trained in the use of them. And the NRA promotes this more than anybody. The USCCA, that's another group that promotes it. Gun safety, gun responsibility. And it's never going to get discussed in the media. People don't care about it. And I can only say that my experience with the NRA is one that they take great pride and pleasure in helping people understand the safety aspects of the firearm. So I think you're dead on right. All right, back to our phones. Lead is in the Bronx of New York. Lead, how are you? The all-new 710 WOR. What's going on?
Oh, hi, Sean. Great show.
You're in the Bronx. I can hear the accent. What's going on?
Yes. I just wanted to make a point that I have a 10-year-old daughter that goes to Catholic school. And, I take her to school every morning. And when I drop her off, I feel very satisfied knowing that I have a good feeling that nothing is going to happen to her. And for the simple reason is that as a parent in that school, we actually pay extra money for a security guard that is a retired police officer and carries a 9mm gun. And I feel very safe bringing my daughter to that school and leave her there all day.
Listen, if we would universally do a complete threat security assessment on every school, put in the number of retired concealed carry military, concealed carry police retired in these schools, we have a line of defense. We would have the ability to step in. They would have the ability to step in and save lives. The idea that is even viewed as controversial to anybody is mind-numbing to me. And I know the president said, well, teachers, if they want to train, I don't want to put all the responsibility on the teachers. If they do, that's fine. I don't have any problem with it. But trained, concealed carry, former military, former police, and a full threat assessment. Everybody has an ID, metal detectors where needed, and you've got security in our schools. We could do it. We do it everywhere else we want to do it. Why couldn't we do it there? Joining us now, by the way, our buddy Phil Robertson, one of the huge rock and roll stars of Duck Dynasty, has a new show, by the way, himself on CRTV. It's called Into the Woods with Phil, and he has a contest going on right now, and he wants you to know about it. What's the contest, Mr. Robertson? How are you, sir?
Well, the contest is whoever wins it will get some of Miss Kay's cooking, and I will give them a ride through the woods and do a little duck hunting as we go.
Wait a minute. You never took me duck hunting, not once. Now, I did get to go to Miss Kay's kitchen, but except we were outside, we were grilling steaks, and I had a great time when I was down there in West Monroe, Louisiana, sir.
Well, you got to remember, when whoever wins this thing and they're able to come down here, I was talking to that Rick and Bubba show over in Alabama this morning.
Oh, my buddy Rick and Bubba. I love those guys.
I told them, I said, boys, always remember, whoever wins this thing and comes down in here, if they're not converted to Jesus yet, they will be before they leave.
All right. Now, that brings us to the old story. So I'm down there interviewing you, and basically your home is a trailer. And yet you build this, majestic kitchen, building for your wife. that you don't even live in. And I'm like, and then you're the chair you sit in, the actual chair that Phil Robertson sits in, looks like it's 100 years old. And I'm thinking,
always remember this: whether it's my household or yours, Hannity, the money always gravitates toward the women's purses.
You
understand what I'm telling you?
Yeah. Good luck in this day and age. You're on your own when you get in trouble next time. Miss K's going to be. Miss K's going to be a little annoyed, but I by the size of her kitchen and besides the size of that building. Now, I just want to know this. So, you never asked me to go duck hunting. Why don't you invite me on the trip? I want to go. How do I win?
You are invited to go, and you'll win by me just saying, Hannity, come on down here. Let's go duck hunting. Load up. Get out of New York for a while.
I know. I need to.
Get out of there and relax, my man. I will give you this. I commend you for standing for the truth when you're dealing with all these people. What I'm here to do, I'm glad you called me in, because if I'm able to talk to you, that means desperation is setting in. So I just want to remind you what you do every night. Jesus in John chapter 8 said that the devil is the source and cause of all murder, and he is also, Jesus said, John 8, read that when you get off the phone, he is the source and the father of lies. So, Sean, what you're doing, maybe even not realizing it altogether, you go so far as to say, how come people, this is just evil, what Hillary Clinton did and all the stuff with her computers and all this and the Steele and the dossier. You got to remember, you're dealing with human beings who are controlled by the father, Sean, of lies.
I believe.
That's why it's so hard to wade through it, because you're thinking, how could people lie this well? They are getting their instructions from the evil one, according to John chapter 8, which is a daunting task you have undertaken, because you're really dealing with the power of the evil one, whether it be the shooters in the schools or the people that you're dealing with that just lies come forth from them. Like Jesus said, telling lies, he speaks his native language, the evil one does. I just wanted to give you that information to know.
Well, you know something? I want to ask you something, because I think at heart you are, and I've had the honor of getting to know you and your family, and I love your family. You have a wonderful family. And, but I do see good and evil. And I actually wrote a book once called Deliver Us from Evil.
You bet you. I remember that.
And what's so amazing to me is that, in the last century, Phil, over 100 million human souls were destroyed in the name of communism, fascism, Nazism. You just
the evil one caused the whole thing.
You see man's inhumanity to man. Look at what happened in the school shooting. This kid, there's evil. No normal, good-hearted human being with a soul could ever go in there and coldly kill innocent children or people that.
Correct. Listen to this. John the Apostle. This is the message you heard from the beginning. He's talking about Jesus. We should love one another, because that's the answer and the solution to these gun deaths and all this other stuff.
Yeah, but everybody says love, love, love. I don't think anybody has a clue what love is.
Well, they don't, and because they don't have God. But the bottom line is, he said, do not be like Cain. He goes all the way back to creation, Adam and Eve, Cain and Abel. They're not before them on the earth, Sean. Listen, don't be like Cain. You remember, he murdered his brother, who belonged to the evil one and murdered his brother. Now listen. And why did he murder him? Because his own actions were evil and his brothers were righteous. That's all he needed.
Let me ask you this, because I think that, and it's a really interesting story for people that don't know. So I'm doing this interview down in West Monroe, Louisiana, with Phil Robertson, who joins us now. He's now on CRTV, and he's got a contest if you want to go duck hunting with him. We'll tell you about that in a minute. And so you're literally, Hannity, you want to get them ratings up? Come on out in the swamp. Now, I've watched your show enough to know that there are alligators in that swamp. And you wanted to dunk my head where where amongst the alligators swim.
Not only your head, but your whole person.
My whole person. Well, if you build a pool, I'll do it in a pool, but I'm not doing it in a swamp with alligators.
Remember, the Lord will protect you, my man.
So you have actually baptized people in that swamp. You're telling me.
Thousands.
Are you serious? Thousands of people?
Thousands. If you saw the throng that we've walked down into the river during a thunderstorm.
Now I feel like a wimp.
And we walk out there in the river. If you had seen the throng that have, by faith, obeyed the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus, died of sin, their old person is being buried, and the new one comes forth.
All right, I have a question then. Why do people that are saved, because I believe in Jesus like you do, and I believe that he's the Son of God and our personal Lord and Savior, and he suffered, died, and was murdered and beaten and humiliated for our sins. I believe all that. But my question is, then why does everyone keep sinning? And I'll start with myself.
Probably because... knowing your history, they probably sprinkled a little water on you before you sinned. Once you got old enough to start gallivanting around a little bit.
Well, wait a minute. Are you saying you don't sin to this day? You don't sin?
Hey, we all make mistakes. That's why Jesus is at the right hand of the Father, constant mediating for us to keep us cleansed of any future sin. He's covered the whole thing. Past ones removed at the cross. Future sins, he's there to not hold them against us.
But you're a changed person. You don't sin like you used to.
Oh, not nearly as much.
All right. So, Phil, I'm sorry. We're just out of time. Listen, so if people want to go hunting with you and win a special hunting trip and enjoy Miss Kay's food and cooking, which you can't beat, you can just go travel accommodations, 2 days, 1 night, West Monroe, Louisiana, home-cooked meal with Miss Kay, a tour of the Duck Commander facility, and gets to go hunting with you. How do you do that?
Well, that's a good question. I've never turned on the internet, never clicked on to anything. I don't have a cell phone.
Wait a minute.
You're on the internet, and I said, I'm what? So they get me on the internet, they film what I have to say, but they'll have to go to CRTV to find out all
you got to do, I got it right here, crtv.com/Phil, and use the promo code Phil, and you get to watch a show as well. All right, thank you so much. Phil Robertson, we love you, the best of the family, and I'll go in the pool. Buy a pool for me.
Hey, I got it lined up. Come duck hunting with me. We'll do the whole deal.
All right, my friend. God bless you. We appreciate it. 800-941-SEAN, toll-free telephone number. All right, Hannity tonight, 9 Eastern. We hope you'll set your DVR. Fox News Channel. The president at CPAC today. If you missed this speech went on an hour and 15 minutes. We'll show you some of the highlights of that speech. We'll get full, complete reaction. Among our many guests, Judge Janine Pirro, and much, much more. And that's tonight, 9 Eastern. On Hannity, on the Fox News Channel, fair and balanced. We're not the destroyed Trump media. Anyway, otherwise, have a great weekend. Thank you for being with us. We'll see you back here Monday, and we'll see you tonight at 9. Hope you have a lot of fun this weekend.